I am McKendrick, and that is Trey.
And this is another episode of the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast.
In today's episode, we want to talk about some of the metrics that are important to us when running a business. As you know, we've started a couple businesses with the coffee, shipping around the nation, coffee delivery business locally in Charleston. And for us, we want to keep our finger on the pulse of what a healthy business looks like, which means you have to track certain KPIs. Those KPIs are key performance indicators that really are an indication of how well your business is doing or not doing.
Yeah, and so I think that we're uniquely placed within our niche to be able to give some business feedback because we don't directly deal with like animal sales or anything like that. We're dealing directly with coffee, with a consumable product. And McKendrick and I both bring a pretty diverse background in the corporate world. So from manufacturing environments, we have experience within supply chain management, within customer service, within operations, within leadership roles. And so we've spent the past combined 35 years living the life of these key performance indicators, right?
Yeah.
So our lives were dictated by month-end metric reviews and target meetings and long-term strategy sessions. And so we brought a lot of that mindset into Cold Blooded Caffeine and the Coffee Run when we started these business. And we thought that it might be beneficial to pass some of that information along to you who may not have had some of those same experiences.
And I think it's good for us to, just talk about it, right? Because I think there may be some responses out there that says, hey, there's a couple of other metrics that are equally as important than that you should be considering.
Yeah.
And what we're going to give today is not necessarily everything, but these are definitely some of the more important ones that we felt like it's worth sharing to the community that follows us, just so you get an indication of, how we're running our day-to-day business.
Yeah. And with that being said, I don't want it to be misconstrued. We're not business experts. We don't claim to be business experts.
Not at all.
This is not financial advice. This is not anything to be misconstrued. This is just our experience over the past few decades of combined experience living that corporate lifestyle that have been beneficial to us and that we've transitioned over and we think might be beneficial to you running your business.
Yeah. And to a point, like some people don't have that experience that we had. Like If you think about 30 plus years of going to monthly reviews and looking at P&L statements and understanding your customers, like a lot of people who go into entrepreneurship may not have that mindset. And we honestly just never dropped it. We came in with creating slides and trying to, figure out the same metrics that are important for these businesses that, either didn't exist when we acquired the business or we just brought with us, from one coming out of corporate America into entrepreneurship.
And I think it's really easy starting your own business to not be held accountable to reporting out those metrics, right? So we're used to having someone there that's waiting for this information, right? We're aware that at the end of the month, you're going to have these reports done so that you're held accountable for the targets that you were supposed to meet.
Right.
Going in, running your own business, I'm only accountable to myself and to you, right?
That's right.
So there's no one else there knocking on my door asking for this information.
Right.
But it's also really valuable to stay in front of, as we'll talk about, because there's a lot of things that these metrics can show you other than, like I know sometimes it felt like they were just pushing paper at times. So of course there was some, there was some redundancies and some things that we decided to cut out of our own reporting, but there is also some very valuable things that we have been able to glean from our businesses by using these reporting metrics every month or every couple of weeks. So we'll just go ahead and dive in. So we've got 6 different categories that we're going to talk about. So bear with us. We're going to go through each one, give you some of the tools that we use, how we calculate these these metrics on a weekly or monthly basis, and then a little bit about each one to help you decide whether that's a good fit for your business or whether it's something that,
Yep. So that said, one of the primary ones that you want to track is your sales, total sales.
I think that's pretty straightforward. I think most people do that. I think that's
they do, right? And for us, we use 3 different kind of platforms to obtain information to get our total sales. So we use QuickBooks, we use Shopify, and we use Square. Some of them we use because they were kind of grandfathered in from what we were doing previously. So we were, we do
the Square we did for in-person sales.
Sales.
That was kind of a carryover from that. We don't use that a lot anymore.
Not
Every
much.
Once in a while, you might get an invoice from me if it's for like Cold Blooded Caffeine specific, like affiliates or something like that.
When
that's
we go
only
to,
Cold Blooded Caffeine. And when we go to
shows,
when we do shows,
we're still using Square.
So that's where all those reports come from, is out of Square.
Now Shopify is mainly from our online sales.
That's our e-commerce platform.
So that's our e-commerce platform that we use. So anytime anyone is ordering anything through Cold Blooded Caffeine and we're shipping, that is going through our Shopify account. And then our QuickBooks is kind of the overall for the coffee run. Now it is connected to pretty much everything when it comes to our accounts and cards. So we capture everything in QuickBooks, and of course QuickBooks has its own reporting,
and so does Shopify and Square as well.
That's true.
So each of them have integrated reports that you can pull from, which makes it a lot easier. Than having to create these reports on your own.
So when you can pull statements really quick, open invoices, past due invoices, aging reports. So each of them have their own benefit, but the combination of all 3 is what we pull to make sure we have total sales across the board for all businesses.
So we start with a number, right? Total sales. What else do we measure though? We don't just leave it at total sales number X.
No. So we break it down into categories as well. So we look at total sales by product, like different product lines. We look at total sales by customer, by region, by revenue, and a lot of these we've established targets for where we want to achieve a certain amount, right? So if I want to sell to at least 25 different customers every month, right? It's okay. How did I measure up against that target?
You can measure against new or returning customers,
repeat customers, returning customers.
And by revenue, you mean revenue stream, which is like broken down into each of those categories, right? So like the coffee run, Cold Blooded Caffeine sales online, Cold Blooded Caffeine sales in person. So we can break them down individually into subcategories to see if each of those revenue streams is meeting its targets.
Right. Because at the end of the day, you want to know where your money's coming from, right? And if there's something you want to do to actually improve that, like if you want more customers or if you want to sell more products, or there's a certain part of the city that you want to sell more in because you may understand that there's certain like wealth or gross income in certain areas of the city
that it may not be worth targeting one area because of the whatever demographics
or whatever, right? So you may want to look at zip codes and make sure you target be pointed about how you go after business based on that. So when you look at total sales, you really want to look at it and be able to break it down as granular as you need to be able to put a strategy behind how you continue to grow the business.
And I think with total sales, the most important thing that you can glean from it is overall cash flow. And that is, can you pay your bills at the end of the month, right? So total sales does a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the total sales number is the number that you need to keep the lights on and to pay all the bills, pay rent, pay employees, all that kind of stuff at the end of the month. So you're talking about total revenue generated, total cash flow into the business with the total sales.
Yep, absolutely.
So I think the obvious counterpart to that is total expenses.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think, again, probably these first 2 are metrics that most people measure.
We hope.
I mean, we hope so. I mean, I know that
people probably do, even if they don't like actually title it the right way, right? But that is what it is. It's sales and expenses.
Sales and expenses, right? So that's the basic, profit, P&L statement, profit and loss statement.
Right.
If you're looking at even like basic software for like financials and things like that. So again, we primarily QuickBooks for expenses. I don't think
we use, that's all.
I think we only use QuickBooks for expenses, because all the expenses from, McKendrick has a company card. I have a company card. We, have expenses that go directly out of the bank account that get, direct withdrawal and things like that for like rent and all that kind of stuff. So everything flows into QuickBooks, and we're able to take those and then break them down even further. So we break them down into 3 primary categories to start with. So all expenses are categorized individually based on their criteria, right? So we have everything from inventory categories to rent, electricity, eat out, gas, all that kind of stuff, right? So everything, marketing, it would be just like an expense report, except that it's only the 2 of us. So we don't expense report it because we're approving our own stuff. But it's essentially that, where we can see every line item that's gone in and out of our business, and we can categorize it based on the expense category. And that's important because we can then take those expense categories and divide them up into 3 critical areas that are important for our business. And those are fixed costs, variable costs, and discretionary fixed costs.
And it's important to know those, right? Because some of them you can't control, or they are.
That's the fixed cost, right? So fixed costs you can't control. That's the rent. That's the electricity is fluctuates a little bit, but we categorize it as a fixed cost. Because we know it's going to be there. Other things like employees, wages, things like that would be a fixed cost. Insurance. So those are your fixed costs. So the primary thing that you want to do, you want to make sure that your sales and your variable costs are in line with each other.
Right.
So that's why it's important to break them out into those 3 categories, to make sure that your variable costs aren't increasing while your sales are decreasing.
Correct.
Right? Variable should always go in the same direction as sales.
So a good example would be like fuel, right? So if I'm driving all around town with the anticipation of making sales, and I don't, and I do this for an entire week, right? My fuel cost is going up. And my sales are going down.
And that's why it should be a quick flag to say, hey, something's wrong. We need to address it. Another big one is inventory. So if you have increasing inventory but decreasing sales, something's wrong.
Something is wrong.
Right. So you either are buying too much or
not selling enough,
or both, right? So that's why it's important to measure fixed cost. So fixed cost, it's important to measure to make sure that nothing's changed.
Correct. Right? From month to month. You need to be looking at it every month to see that,
you need to check your internet bill to make sure your internet bill was what you thought it was.
That's right.
It's pretty straightforward. Like everything is set up for us to, get paid.
Right.
But we want to make sure that nothing has changed. That's right. So that it doesn't get, flagged.
Yeah. You got to do your due diligence to make sure that no one is, pulling a fast one on you, but you're also just being, critical of every dollar that you spend.
Yeah. And then the last one is discretionary fixed.
Discretionary.
So discretionary fixed would be things like advertising, marketing.
Yep.
So those are things that it's a fixed amount at the end of the month, but you have or you can put it in a budget that says, I'm going to spend $2,000 this month on marketing
materials.
But you have the ability to stop that.
Correct.
You have the ability to yank that budget out. To say, so that's why it's the discretionary fixed.
Yeah. And the reality is you're spending it for a reason, right? So the expectation is it results in more sales in some way down the road. But it's one of those things that you should definitely create a budget for it. You don't just want to be creating flyers, getting them printed, putting them out everywhere, unless you know for sure that there's a return that you're going to get as a result of spending that discretionary money.
Everything should be pointed towards that goal of increased sales, if that's your goal, right? I mean, most of the people that are listening to this are in the animal industry. Yeah. So they're selling something, whether it's t-shirts, whether it's animals, whether it's pet food or something like that. You're selling a product. And so your end goal should be increasing sales. And so all of the activities that you do should be based on meeting that goal.
Right.
So if you're doing something with your discretionary fixed that isn't towards that goal, then
And of course,
you need to address that.
To that point, right? A lot of people don't have a huge budget for these type things because they're using a lot of social media nowadays, right? Now, of course, you can invest in some tools that will help you promote your business more than what you could by just using whatever's free that's out there. But a lot of times that discretionary spending somewhat dwindles down, just depending on how you are using the platforms that are.
If you're using organic growth within social media, then
you're probably not spending a whole lot.
But you still need to make sure that you're tracking. I mean, meals is another discretion. I mean, we have a company car. We can expense meals. That doesn't mean that you should.
That doesn't mean like go out every day. Like
it still comes out. It still comes out of the business account at the end of the month. I still have to pay it.
Absolutely.
So that's another one that you can. It's a discretionary fixed.
Yeah.
So that's total expenses.
expenses.
So it's important to categorize each expense by category and then be able to define whether the expense is fixed, variable, or discretionary fixed, and be able to monitor each of those for individual reasons.
Yep.
That leads us to the third category.
Yep, the profit margin.
The profit margin.
Yeah.
So this one's probably less used, I think, than the first two. You may know it, and do it like subconsciously, but so profit margin is an actual calculation. So when we're talking about profit margin, we're not talking about profit. We're not talking about revenue minus cost. We're talking about the percentage of the revenues. So it's a percentage, right? So it's going to be revenue minus cost over the total revenue. So we're looking for how much did we make for what we invested.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And that tells us a lot because we sell products. Is the product worth us selling? Right.
Correct.
So if I'm selling a product and I'm buying it for $10,
okay,
and I'm selling it for $12,
right,
is it worth it for me?
Right.
Right.
That's the question.
That's
the
what
question. Profit margin answers.
So in that equation, it's a 20% profit margin, right?
Right.
So you would take 12, which is your revenue, minus 10, which is your cost, divided by so that's 2, divided by your revenue, 10, which gives you 20%.
Right.
20% is not a good profit margin.
It's not.
So
I mean, maybe in some industries it's okay. But
in that situation, I would say you probably need to look at whether that's a valuable product,
or if you can sell it for more,
or if you can sell it for more,
or
if you can get it for less.
Right? Those are the key things when you start talking about your profit margin: is where are you buying it from, how much you paying for it, and how much you selling it for. Like, do you have a customer base that's willing to pay more? Right. So you think,
is it a premium product? What differentiates it?
Correct.
You know,
even where it's being sold. You think about certain things, right? I was at a museum not too long ago in Chicago, and literally the same, Coke, Sprite, and and tea was $5.75, and it's the same one that you can get at your, out of
they're getting it for the same price as the gas station does, right? So, but it's a premium product because of location.
Absolutely, right? So in some cases, you can make the argument based on where you're selling it at or who you're selling it to, that you can charge a higher premium for that item. But those are the things you got to look at when you're just talking about your profit margin.
For us, it's also important to measure profit margin regularly because we want to make sure that costs of our products aren't increasing from our suppliers. Right. So we need to calculate. It's not a one-time calculation of profit margin. We need to regularly go back and look at price lists from our suppliers to make sure that their pricing, especially in times of like post-COVID, high inflation, price increases are happening pretty consistently. We need to make sure that we are still charging enough on our end to make sure that when we're buying it, or if it's still valuable for us to buy from the supplier, to sell to our customers if we're able to make a profit. So that's why it's important to calculate profit margin, and we do that. We don't do it once a month. I would say probably once a quarter. We go through it. Anytime we do a new product, of course, we calculate profit margin and make sure we're within the range of where we want to be. But also we go back through once a quarter, revamp our our profit margins, make sure that
that
all of our
everything is aligned.
products
Right.
are
I mean, and
aligned.
you're gonna have some items that are, you know, more profitable than others,
For
right?
sure.
So
Yeah.
it's really establishing where you want to be as a business overall. But and there may be items that don't sell a lot, or you know, just are maybe seasonal, that you're willing to be more forgiving on the profit margin. Whereas there's some higher moving items that you actually make more money on, but overall your, you know, whatever your target is, you know, between the two, if you're still maintaining that target, then maybe that's okay for your business.
And that's a wholesale market, right? I mean, a model. That's a wholesale
model. Correct.
Right? So you're going to take a lower profit margin, but you're going to increase volume. So that's a decision for your business, right?
Every business is a little bit different.
To me, as long as you're calculating, as long as you're making conscious decisions, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to tell you what our profit margins are, because it doesn't matter. Right. Your profit margins are going to be different for what you want out of your business than what we have, because we kind of have a hybrid model. We are for the coffee delivery service, we are acting as a distributor.
Correct.
So we have lower prices for the coffee delivery service than you would be able to get from like a standard retailer.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that we give it away for free.
Of course not.
so
we got bills to pay.
There's a fine line there, and you have to do what's best for your market.
And like I said, every industry may be a little bit different. So that's profit margin.
That's profit margin. Okay, and then the next one that was number 3. So number 4 is e-commerce metrics.
Yes.
So a big part of our business, of course, most of you know, is the e-commerce portion, the website portion. It's something that is steadily growing, but it can stagnate if you're not being conscious of driving traffic through sales funnels. And so that's the key point with e-commerce platforms, is sales funnels. And for those that aren't familiar with what a sales funnel is what it sounds like, right? So imagine like a funnel, right? And so you have a certain amount of traffic that goes to your website that goes in the top. That's the big circle at the top. Okay. And then as you funnel down, of the number of total people that went to your website, this amount made it to a checkout page. And it's a smaller circle. Okay. And then of the people that made it to the checkout page, or add to cart. Sorry, I should have done add to cart.
So put something in their cart.
So total people that came to the website, total people that added to cart, total people that made it to checkout, total people that placed the order is the bottom one. Right. So it funnels down, and you should see kind of a natural funnel. Obviously, not everyone that ever visits your website is going to place an order.
It would be great if they did,
but that's not the case. So what we look for in metrics from the website is optimization of that sales funnel. So are we driving more traffic into the website? Because we know that the more traffic that you drive to the website is going to funnel down into more sales. It's not a 1-for-1.
Correct.
Right?
But so to your point, there's a percentage.
There's a percentage.
So if you say
a conversion rate,
if there's 100 people that go to your website and ultimately 5 of them buy,
you got a 5% conversion.
Then you got a 5% conversion, right? So that said, let's get 1 million people to our website, right? And that 5% will be very beneficial.
So it's all about optimization of the sales funnel. So we measure conversion rate for sure. That's something that we want to see. That's the total visitors versus the total orders. That's pretty easy. You divide that out and you get the conversion rate. Another thing that we measure are like total site visits, like I talked about. We talk about, we look at traffic patterns, so where the traffic is coming from. Is it coming? Are you landing directly on our homepage? Are you typing in coldbloodedcaffeine.com?
Right.
You should type in coldbloodedcaffeine.com right now. And are you going to our YouTube channel and then clicking on the link from YouTube? You should go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube.
Like, share, subscribe,
all that good stuff. Are you going through Facebook, Instagram? Is someone else linking their website to ours,
and you're coming that way? Right.
We get a fair amount of traffic that way, actually, like before affiliates. some of the NARBC shows. So NARBC puts a link to their vendors on their website. So if you click on their link, our link on their website, and come to us, it will show us where you came from.
Right.
So we know that you came from NARBC, which helps us know like where to spend our time. Right.
So and what's
like,
working.
We're going to invest more in NARBC because we see there's a return there versus ABC Reptile Show.
Right. Exactly. Well, and
because we're not getting a return on it.
Correct.
Right?
And they may have more followers, which is the whole reason why. Right. So you may have situations where, these affiliates or other, other businesses that we've developed relationships with are helping drive traffic to us. But it's important, like Trey said, to know where that's coming from, because otherwise you will spend an enormous amount of time and energy into either your own website or Instagram or other social media platforms, and you're not getting the benefit from it.
You'll notice that we don't do a whole lot on Facebook, and and that's the reason that our market, the people that buy our coffee, aren't super active on Facebook.
Nope.
And so you're not going to see Facebook ads from us.
Yeah.
It's just not there. It's just not there, right? But YouTube, Instagram, for sure. Like, for sure. There, we invest pretty heavily in both of those platforms, both in time and money. So, so that's all coming from conversions, right?
Correct.
You have to measure what's working, and it's important to review those. Make sure that you're investing your time in the right. I think that's a good point. You're investing your time and your money in the right place, because other's you're just
spinning your wheels
from the hip.
You're just spinning your wheels, and wondering why am I not getting more. More site visits and more conversions.
I see a fair amount because obviously I like coffee. And so I get a lot of Facebook ads for coffee companies. And I see a lot of people, or like coffee groups, chats and stuff like that. And I see a lot of people saying, I just don't get people coming to my website. And the kind of the feedback is, well, what are you doing? Like, are you you can't just sit there,
but that's what they
behind your keyboard and say, look at your sales and say, why isn't anybody ordering? Right.
Coming in every day looking, it looks the same as yesterday. Well, I mean,
because you're not, people aren't searching.
That's right.
Right. You have to be out there promoting, or you have to, be represented on other social media or other,
however, search
driving. You have to be actively driving sales to that sales funnel, right?
Yep. And if you don't know how or where they're coming from, then
how do you use your time wisely? How do you? Yeah. So that's the biggest thing with e-commerce is sales funnels.
Yeah.
And we monitor those. I mean, I probably daily.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the metric that I look at the most, because that's the one that's going to change so frequently.
Yeah. For you, for sure.
For the Cold Blooded Caffeine side, for sure.
Okay.
So that was number what?
4. Yeah, that was the e-commerce metrics. Yeah.
So
number 5 would be like project metrics. So that one is really looking at establishing like your growth and stretch targets to understand how you want to grow. I think it's always good to have some kind of pipeline of projects that you're working on that will stretch you, right? Because you want to continue to have something, like there has to be the next best thing coming.
And I think so in the business world, that would have been Six Sigma for us, right? So
yes,
we were both. Were you a green belt?
I was green belt.
Okay, I was too. Okay. So Six Sigma certifications for those that don't know, or like, I don't know how you describe it to
someone like layman's terms. Like, I don't know.
A standardized method for problem solving and problem improvement and project management,
continuous improvement, right? Like it's a continuous improvement cycle. Man, there's some quality guys we work with. Probably
they did. I mean, I know how to, I know what it is. I just don't know how to explain it.
Anyway, I think that was good enough.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, so it's a problem solving methodology. It's really specific. It's really it's got step by step on how to do it, and it's really structured. But we don't use Six Sigma in Cold Blooded Caffeine. I mean, Six Sigma is mostly for like manufacturing, more specific to manufacturing, and even more so to like engineering, like quality engineering and things like that. So we don't use Six Sigma, but we do still focus a lot on projects, because if you stagnate, you lose, right?
Correct.
So you
have
have
to
to
be
continue
innovative,
to be innovative
all the time. Like, you got to be thinking about what the competition is doing, how you want to stay ahead in the game. What can you do to explore and be more creative in the space that you're in? Because there's always someone else out there ready to step up, take your plays, move into number one. And you want to always be moving forward. I mean, there's plenty of, when you think about, what you name it.
Kodiak.
Yeah. I mean, anything, right? I think about even streaming. I remember
some of you are too young to remember Kodiak.
But there's always someone else out there that's ready to take your place. So projects and project metrics are one of those things that you should always have. Like, you don't want to be the one stuck, like, Blockbuster, and be the last one and trying to hold on, figuring out, like, I'm a beat this streaming service because I'm gonna keep selling and renting out, DVDs from my
It's great
store.
to be the best in your category. Absolutely, it's great to be the best
for sure.
in your category. And you have to have some level of expertise and knowledge and respectability to succeed, right?
Right.
Because people aren't going to buy from you if you're just Joe Schmo down the street.
Right.
But you also have to continue to innovate. Cold Blooded Caffeine is not going to be just a coffee roaster forever.
Right. And not do anything else. Like, no, there's
coffee roasting is going to always be, I think, the core of our business. That's why we started. That's what we enjoy
that
doing.
Won't go away.
That's not going to go away. But there are other aspects of our business that we want to grow to make sure that we're still relevant.
Yes.
Right? That was why we brought in the coffee delivery service in the first place.
Right.
That was a diversification. That was a growth. That was something that was in the market that we saw that wasn't being fulfilled in a way that we thought it should be fulfilled. So that's a good example of
and we got some other projects that are in the pipeline. So hopefully, if you've been watching some of our our social media, you've probably had some glimpses of a few things that we
had an event last week, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was for, but it just know, like, all of that stuff is intentional, right? Like, that's not just let's invite a group of people over and have a good time, right? Not that you can't do that, but know that those are all
a purpose
on our project board slides.
We were, what was the comment we heard today? Be happy on purpose, or
be happy on purpose.
So we're
have a good day on purpose.
Have a good day on purpose. So we're doing things with purpose.
Yes.
So just know that and be aware.
Yeah. So and some of them are short-term goals, some of them are midterm goals, and some of them long-term.
Yeah. Goals. Some things take time. Like it may not even be this year that some of the projects that we have come out, but just know, and honestly, some of them may not even come to
goals
fruition.
Are fluid. Right?
Yeah.
Goals are fluid.
Yeah.
You don't want to invest a lot of time and money if you deemed it to be not worthy of production or whatever that is. So we've had a couple of them. Like, so mainly we set our goals. The idea is to set them once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that at the beginning of the year, and we set those goals. Now at the beginning of the year, we didn't know a lot about the coffee business, the coffee delivery business.
Correct.
We had just
so
we made some assumptions.
Yeah.
And we are in the process actually of going and back and tweaking some of those assumptions.
Now we're at the 6-month mark.
We're at the
7th past.
Yeah.
Well, this is the 7th month, so we've completed 6.
Yeah. So
a little bit more.
We're going back like at a mid-year review and reviewing those goals, but you can, like, just because you said I need to make $1 million in sales this year.
Yeah.
And you're at 200,000 at halfway through the year.
It's kind of like
there's no reason to keep that $1 million sales unless you know
like there's some seasonality or something, and when they expand the road next to your business is going to drive 80 million people, and you're going to get a
perfectly fine to adjust those goals.
Yes, absolutely.
You have to don't change them every week. Right. There has to be a legitimate reason why you're changing it, but don't keep a goal that's not don't really. Just say, "Oh, I failed,"
right?
And just because that's a recipe for giving up.
Yeah, that's a disaster.
So set your goals, monitor those goals, and adjust them if you need to.
Yep. Okay, last one we'll talk about is production metrics. So again, this one is definitely based off of the experience that Trey and I brought to the table, coming from a manufacturing background, which is where we spent a large part of our careers before coming into the entrepreneur world. And production metrics are important just to understand kind of your efficiencies, right? So for example, one of the things that we did is time studies. So it's important for us to know like how many roasts can you do per cycle, which is a certain amount, which equates to something over, an 8-hour period. So ultimately that will help define your capacity of roasting. But that's one part of the process, right? Then you got to go and understand, well, how long does it take to grind a 12-ounce bag, or even bag 12 ounces of coffee beans, even sealing a bag. So literally there are steps in that process from beginning to end that you want to be able to measure so that you have an idea of when or how much capacity you're able to absorb. If someone says, I want to give you a contract today, but I need you to make, 500 pounds of coffee a day, you should know based on your bottleneck, and your bottleneck is wherever the constraint is that limits the amount of production that you can do, how much you can do per day. And with that, you can say, oh, if I do that, I need 3 shifts worth of, I need 24 hours a day, or really no one works 24 hours. So 24 minus breaks and minus lunch and, minus change over time and things like that. So you may end up being like 20 hours a day or 21 hours a day. But based on that, those time studies should allow you to determine what your ultimate capacity would be.
Machine capacity and employee capacity.
This is true. Well, again, if you're gonna add people or add shifts, that means you're adding people.
You're adding,
wages, things of that nature.
You're gonna have a certain amount of installed capacity, right, with the equipment that you have.
Right.
So with us, we have our primary equipment, our coffee roaster. There's a certain amount of coffee. If that machine runs 24 hours a day uninterrupted, there's
a number, right,
amount that it can produce.
Correct.
That is installed capacity on that machine.
Correct.
That is not a realistic number.
No,
because then you have employee capacity, right? You have operational efficiencies, operational capacity.
Right.
So we run one shift, right? Just because we don't need to run. But at that point, if we ever come to a point where we're talking about an additional roaster, or hiring an additional employee, or running a second shift, or any of that stuff,
and then you
have to understand what that installed capacity is, what that is operational capacity, what do those operational efficiencies look like, in order to determine if it is within the best interest of the business to invest in that equipment.
Correct. Because we may want to only be a first shift operation. That means, we just buy another piece of equipment and hire a person and run both machines on first shift.
Right.
Or keep the same equipment, hire one other person, let them run second shift.
Yep.
So all those things are things that you take into account when you start talking about, the production metrics. And a lot of that feeds into just the overall operational efficiency is what I was just describing, right? Like, how do you determine when to invest in more equipment, right? And what does your business profile look like to even help you decide if you want a second shift or add more equipment and just do it all on first shift? Do you have the space for it? So those are all operational type decisions that you need to make, but it all starts with being able to measure how efficient you are with the overall operation. Even earlier when I talked about, fuel costs for the delivery service, same deal, right? How many miles per gallon am I getting? Am I going an optimized route to make sure I'm going to every customer in a certain geographical area to make sure I'm optimizing fuel? All those things are very important when you're talking about the efficiency of how you operate the business.
And to me, I think this one is the most missed of the 6 that we talk about when in terms of hobby businesses versus successful entrepreneurial businesses, right? To be able to put accurate numbers against production targets, to put accurate numbers against employee performances and stuff. I see a lot of people who are doing a lot of good things fall behind because they're not able to respond to situations where they need to grow. Or they grow too big too fast, and they're not doing it based on numbers, but they're doing it based on gut feel.
Right.
And so I think it's really important that no matter how big or small you are, that you're measuring these production numbers. And in any business, I've been sitting over here while you're talking, trying to think of a business that wouldn't benefit.
Oh man, I don't.
It doesn't. Like I was thinking, like most of the people that we're talking to are reptile breeders.
Correct.
You can do this within the reptile breeding. I know it's kind of a little faux pas to talk about breeding and production and things like that. So just understand that these are business terms and that I don't actually mean monitor production of your animal. Like
no.
So just all. But I think you can monitor food input, you can monitor cage space optimization. You can, I mean, there's so many things that, I mean, if somebody that's in it better than me can take that and you can say, oh, I can see where this can be applied within pretty much every industry that you're working in. And if you think about it and you look at the people that are successful within your industry, I almost guarantee that they're doing some form of this.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that some of the big name reptile breeders that are making a name for themselves aren't doing this to some level, right? They're not measuring outputs. They're not measuring hatch rates. They're not measuring food. Whatever.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest difference between success and failure in terms of entrepreneurial growth.
Yeah. And I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, even when you think about just those type of operational efficiencies, I think about when we go to shows and have to set up, how many trips to the vehicle do we have to make, right? That's operational efficiency.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Those are things that you think about. I think about even when I'm delivering on the coffee route for the coffee run, it's where do I store equipment in my vehicle that when I get out and get in, it's like a single movement, right? I'm grabbing what I need and I'm out.
Right.
And then I'm back in, putting stuff in place.
You're 100%.
Right. Those are operational efficiencies that people don't think about. Like, are you getting out the car? Let me walk to the other side, open up the passenger door, get some stuff over here. Like, those are inefficiencies that you can think about that will save time, and they add up. If I'm going to 100 some customers, over the course of a month, and I shave off a couple minutes out of each one that I go to, then that's time saved back to me. Those are operational efficiencies that, again, a lot of people don't necessarily think about when they are thinking about their business, but it is something that definitely goes a long way, saves you a lot of time, makes you efficient. And if you're not efficient, then you end up throwing money at problems that you didn't have to, right?
Yeah.
You're adding employees, you're adding shifts.
And employees are going to be your biggest cost.
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Above rent, above everything else. So if you can optimize the employees that you have or the time that you are investing so that you don't have to hire employees.
Correct.
Then it's such a huge savings in terms of capital from the business.
Yep. And the last piece I would just add for the operational or production kind of metrics is for me, that's important on the coffee delivery side for the distribution is looking at shelf life. And that's something else that you have to take into account as well, right? You can't buy too much if you're looking at something that has an expiration date on it, right? Because then it becomes waste. You spent money on something that did not ultimately result in a sale. So now it's waste.
And also, even on top of that, anything that's sitting on your shelf is money that you could be making.
Opportunity money lost.
Right.
So if I buy $5,000 worth of, of product and I don't sell it for 3 months,
I've got to front that cost.
Correct.
Right?
Like starting the business, okay, we understood. We had to kind of front money to get it to a place where we could support our customers. But then you get to a place where you're optimizing what you buy to make sure what you buy, you're going to sell.
Because you have both ends, right? You have inventory where I'm fronting money to a wholesaler.
Correct.
To get inventory to put in my warehouse so that it's available. And then I'm also fronting money to a customer because
their terms.
Right. It's not like I roll up and McKendrick's got a credit card swiper in his pocket.
Like, give me my money.
The most, I guess most standard business to business terms, you'll see them between 7 to 45 days. I think is probably your comment.
There was a job that I've negotiated. But I mean, it was for a different reason, but I was negotiating net 15 day term.
Nice.
Like I need to get paid and paid now.
But ours are net 30.
Yeah,
so
we're standard about net 30.
That's about the industry standard.
So if you think about that though, at the onset of this business,
I'm buying a month's worth of inventory,
and
I'm fronting
selling it and not getting paid for a month.
So I'm
So
essentially
you're
2 months,
at least 2 months in the hole, right? So you need to make sure you're optimizing that as well. You don't want to be buying a bunch of stuff that you can't sell immediately, or you don't want to buy stuff that's going to sit on the shelf long enough to expire,
right?
And you're selling bad product to a customer, or you're just trashing it.
So that metric is called inventory turns.
Those are your inventory turns.
So you're how many times your inventory turns over?
Yeah,
over a given period. Most of it's a month.
Yeah. So you want to turn your inventory as much as possible, which is
because that's more money that hits my pocket every time, right?
Right.
So if I sell
and it's not sitting on the shelf,
that's 4 times a month I turn my inventory.
Correct. So that said, you should also be measuring how much you have in inventory from month to month as well, because there should be a number relative.
You should have a base number.
Yes.
And then you should turn it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, okay.
Good deal.
That was a lot. We ran through them pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, relatively. I mean, based on the content, I think it was a good time.
I think we could have talked a lot longer, and maybe you want us to. So if you're interested in hearing more about this type of stuff, let us know. Drop us a comment and let us know. We'd be happy to talk about it. We just don't know what level of interest there really is for the business side. So we're happy to talk about it. This was our life for so many years. So there's a lot of information up here that's hopefully useful. That we. I
don't know. I think I've suppressed a good bit of it.
It's it all came flooding back as we were talking about it.
I know terms that probably hadn't talked about in years, but it's definitely good to really have, like I said before, have your finger on the pulse of your business.
That's the main thing. You've got to be looking at metrics. You've got to be looking at analytics.
And these are not the end all for metrics. There's so many more metrics out there. And maybe there's some that make more sense for the type of business that you have or run. But these are the ones that stood out to us, are important to us. Top of the list for us. There are others that we're tracking as well.
For sure.
But yeah, these were kind of the key ones that we wanted to share.
And we also kind of kept them high level too, because we filter. We mentioned a couple of the filters that we do, but that we get into some pretty minutia. I mean, but it's necessary if you're talking about evaluating
and you want to grow.
And you want to grow. So I think that's it. That's episode 10 of the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast.
Loving it.
Yeah. So as we mentioned earlier, like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe.
And we will catch you again soon.